Immediately, I knew I was being watched. You can just have that feeling, they're out here looking at you. And I just had that feeling that I need to stay out. There is something in there that did not want me there. My name's Eric Testman. I'm originally from St. Joe, Missouri. Of course, I grew up, I'm a veteran. I'm an author. Um, I spent 13 years in the military, 4 deployments, and I've traveled the world, so I've seen many different things. My first experience up in St. Joe's with great grandpa, and he used to warn me that Momo was about to stay out of the woods. Of course, I thought great grandpa was full of malarkey, so I just went out in the woods anyways. So my first experience, or my first ordeal or experience, whatever you want to call it, probably happened when I was roughly 13, 14 years old. And me and my stepbrothers and my half brother were playing hide go seek out in the woods, out in the cow fields and woods. And I ran down this path, and there was nothing there. And I circled around my brothers and came back down that path again, probably 2 to 5 minutes later, and there's a footprint that was huge, and it wasn't there before, and it had no shoe prints. It was just a bare foot. So that was my very first experience with it, and ever since then, I was like, Grandpa ain't full of crap. Grandpa knows what he's talking about, and I ran back to the house. And then through my travels throughout the world, I've heard different legends and stories, and I've known about the Yowie in Australia and the Urn in China, stuff like that. I've never actually had an actual visual, but I get like out here where I live at. Oh, sorry, my computer's doing some things. I was editing a book. Uh, Out here where I lived at, I've lived out here 31 years, and I get what I call my fall friends, and they come in during the fall usually, and they usually give me a hoop, let me know they're here, or make some kind of weird animal noise that you can tell is definitely not that animal, because animal don't make your ears ring whenever it makes out a call. Now I've got trails out here from them with footprints, structures. They're eating my cedar bark and stuff like that. I've never actually had a bad experience with one. Every now and then I'll get that feeling I need to stay out of the woods, and either I do, or if I really have to go out there, then I grab my 7 mag rifle and I go. Uh, but usually it's pretty peaceful how we have our little interactions here. Well, I hunt deer. I mean, I'm a hunter and I'm a gatherer out here on my property. I got 40 acres out here, and most of it's woods. So I've got all the game I want to hunt and all the food I want to gather. I've got it out here. And I always leave. I don't pick things clean. I leave some for nature and for those who's out there. And then come deer season, every time I kill something what I don't eat, I leave out there for my guest and the rest of nature. So that's been most of my experiences on the cryptid side. I mean, I've dealt with stuff from paranormal, UFO, and cryptid, all three. Primarily, most of my stuff has been paranormal. Secondly, it's probably going to be UFO, and then thirdly, is probably cryptid, because I don't have a whole lot of interaction with them out here. We just have a understanding. You don't mess with me, I don't mess with you. We live in peace.
Let's go back to
Uh,
that and get some more detail on that before we move on to those other subjects. Okay. Um,
okay.
Going back to, the land that you lived on, you said you lived there 30 years. Is that right?
31, yeah.
31 years. That's quite a while. That's a lot of experience there on your property.
Hmm.
And they're there by the sound they make. Now, how do they communicate that to you exactly? Describe that a little bit more.
Most commonly, it's, I guess, what you call a whoop. I'll go. I leave at work about 0600 in the morning, so I usually get up about 0515, get around 0530 at the latest if I'm tired, and I get things around, go out to my truck or my bike, whatever I'm driving or riding that day. And if they're in the area, I usually get a whoop, and that lets me know they're here. All right, guys, and I tell the kids, hey, stay out of the woods. Don't go out there unless I'm with you. Our guests are here. Um, Now, last fall was kind of a different experience. I just bought the property off my dad, and unfortunately, my mom passed away before I could buy it. But dad had took the money and paid off his debt, bought a truck and RV. So he had it parked out here in our center drive, and was staying here till he's getting ready to go to Yuma, Arizona. So I was out there in the RV with him watching some TV and talking, and of course he fell asleep. So I waited till the movie was over, and I thought I'm going to leave. Now, just before I left, kept hearing something tapping on the side of the RV and felt it shake a little bit. Well, my first thought was, it's one of my girls playing a prank on me or something, you know. I'm a single daddy of two teenage girls, so we kind of like to have fun and mess with each other. So playing pranks or trying to scare each other is not uncommon. Uh, then I got to realize, man, it's really dark outside, and my youngest is the one that's home, and she is deathly scared of the dark. So I just chalked it off, and I thought I heard something climbing on the roof of the RV, and because you can hear little footsteps up top, and I was like, that's interesting. That's got to be my daughter. And I just chalked it off, didn't think nothing about it. Well, I decided the movie was over. I decided I was going to go back to the house. So I get out of the RV, and immediately I knew I was being watched. You can just have that feeling, they're out here looking at you. It's you just, I don't know how to describe it. You just 13 years in the military, being hunted and doing hunting, you kind of get a feeling, when something's watching you and when you're, being tracked. And then from the bottom of the holler down here where my rifle stand is, because I've got two stands. I got one that I rifle hunt out of and one that I bow hunt. Well, down in my bottoms, down in the creek bed, is where my rifle stand is. And I mean, I harvest a lot of deer out of that stand. And I heard what sounded like an owl call, but the owl call was so loud it sounded like 1,000-pound owl. Now, anybody knows anything knows there ain't no such thing as 1,000-pound owl. I think you could feel it in your body a little bit, and it kind of rang in your ears. So I was like, that's no owl. And then, like a few seconds later, you heard dog bark, about 1,000-pound dog bark. Well, same ordeal. There's no such thing as 1,000-pound dog. And same thing, you can feel it in the chest and it rang in your ears. And then about 3 seconds later, some kind of weird bird call. And it was the same effect on that one as the other two. I was like, well, this is interesting. This is a little bit more activity than what they usually do. And so that's when I started taking notes on for certain things. Like, all right, my friends are back, but this is kind of different. They haven't signaled me like they usually do. So I just chalked it off as okay, they're here. So I went back inside, which, this is still rifle season, and they know I rifle hunt. They know I'm not going to sit there and shoot them, so they don't mess with me when I'm out there. I go out there, I do my hunting, drag my kill off to where I need to take and gut it. I gut it. And then I drag it back to the house, let it hang in the tree about 3 or 4 days if it's cold enough, because I like to have my venison age. It gives a good flavor to it, gets that gamey taste out of it. So if it's 42 degrees or less out, I've usually got somewhere around 6 deer hanging in a tree aging, and I do that before we process it. And then so what I don't use, I usually take and load in the truck or whatever I got available, and I take it out in the woods, and I've got a certain little spot I drop it off at. Come spring, that thing is gone. So it's usually, either my friends are getting a hold of it or whatever out in nature. I've got bears, I've got cougars, I've got bobcats, I've got red wolves, I've got Missouri gray wolves, I've got coyotes, I've got buzzards, I've got eagles, hawks. I mean, I've got a lot of nature out here. So, and I've always believed on that Native American, saying, give back to Mother Earth what she provides to you. And that's what I like to do. So I have a very good, how do you say, probably a circle going on here with nature. She provides for me and blesses me, and in return, I bless those of my brothers and sisters out in them woods. So Some of the Native Americans will tell you that, Sasquatch or any of that is your elder brother, big brother. And that's kind of what I look at him. I've never had a negative experience. Now I live not far off the Niangua River, which, if a lot of people know this area and know some of the lure behind cryptids, Niangua River is very active. So when I get that negative feeling, I don't think it's my usual friends. I think it's something else. Now, could it be Dogman? Dogman is very, very, very well known along the Niangua River. Could it be Gugwe? Could it be something else? Quite possibly. It very well. I don't ever think it's a Wendigo, although I've had occasions where I thought one was in the area, but I've never had an interaction with them. So it's just a thought. Uh, we don't get winters in Missouri are not like they were when I was younger. So if there ever was a Wendigo type creature in the area, I don't think it'd stay around long because it don't stay cold enough. But I could be wrong. I mean, I'm no expert. I'm learning new stuff every day. A lot of stuff I learned growing up was family experience or personal experience or stories from the people in the countries they were at. Kind of like the Yowie when I was in Shellwater Bay training area, Australia. And we was out there doing some training, came across an abandoned house, which they told us was some European settlers that had got massacred by the I'm brain farting on this Aborigines. And then one of the army guys came up to me and goes, "Have you ever heard about the Yowie?" I was like, "No, what's the Yowie?" I'm kind of interested. What's that? Because I've always liked that stuff. That stuff always resonated with me. So he told me a story about the Yowie, which, for those who don't know, Yowie is the Australian Bigfoot. It's one of their cryptids they have out there. And he goes, "Man, Yowies are known here." And I was like, "That's cool, man. I ain't never seen one." Well, me and my dumb young curiosity gets a look into this abandoned house, going, "I want to go in there." And so we ain't got no downtime, or we're on downtime. We're not doing anything. So, the rest of my Marine brothers were sitting there chilling, and them Aussie Army cats were sitting there chilling. I was like, "I'm gonna go check this house out." So I started to walk up in there, and first time I put a foot on that step, I just had that feeling that I need to stay out. There is something in there that did not want me there. So I ended up backing off, which is kind of weird to hear coming from an old Marine grunt, but to be scared of something. But when you get that sixth sense or whatever you want to call it, you need to stay out. Yeah, I kind of listened to it. I stay out, and that's what I did there. So I've never actually had an actual sighting of anything. It's always just been feelings, sounds, or stuff like you can't see it, but my house or my double wide runs north and south. Well, here on the south end, about 10 yards from the edge of my trailer is the wood line. So I'm surrounded by woods. I got 40 acres of woods, but 2 or 3 of it's probably, pasture land. And just probably 30 yards from the edge of my house, I've got cedar that's stripped up 15, 20 foot in the air. Now, deer and porcupine will strip tree bark, not 15, 20 foot in the air. And that's when I got to talking to my friend D.A. Roberts. He's also an author, and he got to tell me about the municipal stuff. I was like, I never thought about that. That's I said, that makes a lot of sense. So I sent him pictures of a blind that's literally to the west of me, behind my place, probably about 50 or 60 yards. You can see my place from that blind. And I've got trees that are pushed over, and they make an X. Are kind of pushed over and crossed into an X. I've got trees that's been bent over, and now they make an arch touching the ground. I've got trees with stuff that's broken off of them, about 6-7 foot in the air. And, I had trails, and I got pictures of that my foot next to one of the footprints, and that. And I wear a size 9, and that thing was twice the size of my boot, and probably twice as wide. I mean, they're huge. And all that's just right beside and right behind my place. Well, the first time I ever seen a cedar tree stripped was right after I heard the noises down here at the creek bed in front of my place here. And I was walking in because I was kind of curious, man, what are them noises? Well, I've got a tree cam that goes to my phone down there, and I've also got one down there because that's where most of my deer come through at. So that's why I got two game cams down there. So I was like, well, I need to replace the SIM card in that one. And I've got another one in my field out in front of me. So I go down there and I replaced that SIM card. I just kind of looked around and bam, the first thing I saw was a strip cedar. I was like, well, this is kind of interesting. I said, and this thing goes up about 8 foot in the air. And I'm like, I've never seen this. And I snapped a picture of it, sent it to DA. And DA's like, dude, you got any more of that on your property? I said, well, but honestly, I never really paid attention. I said, but I'll go out and look now. So now I know what I'm looking for. So I went out looking, and that's when I noticed to the south and to the west of me is all them strip cedars and structures that's out there. And I started snapping pictures and sending it to them. And that's when I started finding trails and all these. I mean, these trails, the feet were every bit of that big, they're that wide, and they ranged from about the size of my foot to bigger, and you can watch them in the trails. So I just started snapping pictures, and then I decided, man, I gotta get a size comparison of one of them. So one of them, I put my foot down next to it and snapped a picture of it, which anybody that lives in the woods knows that tree foliage and debris is thick in the woods. So getting a good print, it's hard. Yeah, I mean, it's like tracking a deer. Unless you know what you're looking for in them leaves and that debris, you're never gonna know they're there unless you see them. And there's certain things you got to look for. Well, it's the same thing for this. I mean, they're heavy creatures. They leave a trail, but even as big and heavy as they are, if you don't know what you're looking for, you're going to miss it. I mean, it's just that simple. And that's when I started looking and I was saying, and then I could see all the trails branching off to these other cedars and these structures. I was like, well, this is kind of interesting. I don't know why I've never seen this before. And I think it's because I never looked for it before. I just never really thought about it.
Did you get any cast of those?
It's you won't be able to, not in this foliage. My I haven't burnt we haven't burnt these woods off in so many years that it's so thick that it's next to impossible. Really, I don't think, and not a definitive one. No. If it was wet out and it was a bare spot, probably I could. I don't know if you know the terrain of Southwest Missouri, but one thing we can definitely grow a lot of, and that's rock. And my property ain't much different. I've got rock all over it, huge stuff. I mean, we got caves that riddle all along the Niangua River out to my east. Niangua River's east of me, and but and we live on top cave systems. I mean, I've got an artesian well, and I've got two spots on my property that are the tunnel systems to fill the artesian well, because a lot of people don't know artesian well is the deepest the water reservoir that you can get, and the only way you can fill an artesian well is they have what's called basically a tunnel, and it's like a sinkhole, and that fills up water, drains down in there, goes down and gets into the artesian well. Now, and that's why we depend on rain and water, because not just for our crops and our grass and everything else, but because that's how you fill an artesian well. I mean, and some of it does seep down through the upper aquifer into the lower aquifer, which is artesian, through the limestone and sandstone and stuff like that. But that filtering system is so slow that it would never keep up with the demands of the lower aquifer. So, but down here to my southeast, I've got one of them that I believe is a spot you feel artesian well. The other one to my east out here, probably 80 yards from my house, is another one. So it's pretty active down in there. I get a lot of wildlife down in those areas. That's why my rifle stand is down there. I don't like to hunt rifle and bow out of the same stand because it gets the animals used to where you're at and they stop coming. So that's why I always bow hunt behind me out here to my east, and down here to my west, I'm always rifle hunting. I keep it kind of changed up, and it's for that reason. It's I maintain good animal and plant husbandry on my property, and it bodes well for me. I'm blessed.
This is all just extremely fascinating and interesting to me. So thank you for sharing so much information on that. So they have an ample amount of food source and water source there because of the river, and then there's just a lot of wildlife there. Why do you think they migrate out and back in the fall of the year?
Um, I don't know. I mean, it's my theory, and a lot of cryptozoologists believe the same thing. I'm no cryptozoologist. I'm just a hillbilly from Missouri. That's all I am. I love motorcycles, and I'm a veteran. And that's just who I am. I'm by far not a cryptozoologist. But I kind of have the same theory that a lot of them do, and I think they migrate kind of like what our ancestors did, following the game. Um, Maybe they like cooler climates because they got all that hair on them. I don't know. I just know, my guests always come here about fall and leave come about spring. Um, what DA has brought to mind, which I kind of agree with him on, my property is basically a pharmacy for them because I have so many. Oh, I got a wasp. Sorry. I've got so many medicinal plants that grow out here that, in the way that they're stripping the cedar bark, we're kind of under the impression that this is my property is probably a pharmacy. Not only that, my property is like the crossroads of the area. I've got deer to come through from all four directions that convert through my property because I've got Niangua River here to the west of me. To the east of me, behind me, I've got a creek and a couple ponds. To the south of me, I've got some ponds, and to the north of me, I got some ponds. So I've got deer that come from all four directions across all through my property and go out to the other places. And most of my wildlife will do that. And I've got a lot of turkey. I can sit out here at nighttime and just and you can hear the turkey gobbling. All right, I know where you guys are. I can sit out there in springtime just and I hear them going off. Well, I know where you're at, and it's just different things you do. And it's just I've got a variety. I mean, I've just anything you want to eat, I've got out here. I've got coon, I've got possum, I've got squirrel, I've got armadillo, I've got turkey, rabbit, deer, bear. I mean, I've got everything out here. I've been stalked by cougars several times on the Niangua, even though Missouri Conservation tell you there ain't no cougars out here. For 31 years, I can tell the conservation it's shoved up their backside because I know for a fact there's cougars out here. Now, probably about 20 years ago, anybody from our area will tell you down along W Highway, we had a bunch of livestock that was getting mutilated. Now, I never thought about it until recently. We thought it was cougars that was killing the cows and the horses, and it was their front of their throats were ripped out. And this is where I start just thinking different now because I've learned a little bit more. But back then, we've actually caught cougars on game cams, and conservation told us it was a pack of bull mastiffs. Well, if anybody knows a bull mastiff, one, don't run in packs. Two, they're about the laziest dog they can get till something excites them. So it wasn't a pack of bull mastiffs out here killing these horses and these cattle. And then for a long time we chalked it up as cougar till I got to doing more research and realizing, well, it was the front of their throats that was ripped out, not the back. A cougar hops on from the back and sinks his teeth into your throat. So could it be something besides cougar? Possibly. But we had a lot of livestock back in late 90s that was mysteriously killed. So, but we just chalked it up to cougar back then because that's what we thought. And then, of course, we got in a fight with conservation over that.
Obviously, Bigfoot has like a buffet there of lots of food, lots of water, lots of provisions, and it sounds like you have some other interesting wildlife that frequents your property as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't say for sure, but I am pretty convinced that we either, excuse me, may have dogmen that come through here during certain times, or we may have gugwe, and that could be when I get that feeling to stay out of the woods. Because, like I said, I've lived out here 31 years. I hunt these woods and gather these woods all year round. So, and my little fall guests know that, and they don't mess with me because they know I'm not going to take a pop shot at them. Whatever, I mean, I throw what I don't eat, I throw out in the woods, give back to nature. What I harvest and don't want, I give back to nature. Well, they know that, and they know that I'm not here for that. So that's what gets me to thinking that maybe when I get them strong feelings that it's something besides my friends that come through here. And I call them my friends because that's just probably the easiest way to explain it to somebody. Because the people who don't know this stuff do not understand this stuff. I can't sit there and tell you that every single one of these things is like Harry and Henderson. I'm sorry. I mean, I've got reports from all over the world will tell you differently. But I can tell you, my guys here, they're kind of that way. Now, we're not buddy sitting by the campfire drinking mead and telling stories. We're not doing that. But we live together peacefully.
Do you think
So,
these things are just a flesh and blood creature? Do you think they have some other aspects about them? There's a lot of information that says, there's some paranormal parts to them. What are your thoughts on that?
well, I tend to, far as Dogman, Bigfoot, Gugwe goes, they're flesh and blood. I'm under the theory that we all evolved from Homo erectus, the first ape that stood and walked on two legs. I'm under the theory that, and this is my theory, that they probably stayed down that course when we branched off and became what we are, and that could be why the natives will tell you that they're the elder big brother. They've been here longer than we have. They very well could be the remnants of Homo erectus. I don't know. That's just my theory. You come into, like, I've seen the black dog. Those of you don't know, and this black dog is pretty prominent with truck drivers. It's You haven't got a lot of sleep and you're doing a lot of traveling. The black dog visits you, and usually bad something happens. The time I saw the black dog, something almost happened, but I was able to catch it, and it didn't happen. So I'll lean towards that's probably more spiritual. When they go, I just you got to listen to stories, and you listen to stories, and that pretty much tells you that they're supernatural. They're in the English modern terms, they're dynamic. But and actually, that's my third book I'm writing is actually going to be based on that. And but I kind of lean towards that, like the black shook. Now, there's many stories about the black shook, and they hunt with the wild hunt. Well, there's two kinds of stories of wild hunt. There's my Norwegian side, which is Odin and his, Odin leads the wild hunt, and black shook hunting with him, and that's why in my second book I wrote it that way. And then there's the other side of it where they just go around killing at mercy. It's and there's black shuck there. Now there's other stories of black shuck by themselves. I don't know. I'd say more of that stuff is probably supernatural. I mean, I've heard the theories that Bigfoot's always seen around UFOs and blah blah blah. No, my opinion, and I mean, everybody's welcome to believe what they want. That's their freedom, and I'll let them do that. That's their fine. It's just my feelings and my experiences would suggest otherwise. Far as portals, I know there's portals. Do I think they're using it? No, I don't think those are using it. Do I think they may accidentally get sucked in and out of them? Yeah, I mean, it happens to us. Look at that story of the pilot over the Bermuda Triangle. I mean, he went through a portal and came up hours in the place before he was supposed to be there. And it's that he's not the only one. I mean, we've had military pilots that's happened to. I mean, it's just, do I think that stuff happens? Yeah. And then if you see him coming in and out of the portal, I think it's more accidental than it is anything. But I could be wrong. I don't know. It's just a theory.
You've
Go ahead.
had some UFO experiences now. Is that on your property you've had those, or was that elsewhere?
Oh, on my property all over the world. In fact, last weekend I got drug out to a floating trip, and we floated down to the NRO. Well, we was in a what do you call them things? A B&B, I think is what they're called, bed and breakfast or something like that. I don't remember, something like that. It's not my little forte, so I don't know much about them. So I tagged along with my friends that drug me out with them, and we were sitting there Friday night at a campfire, and I was drinking mead, and we were just having fun at a fire, and looked up and seen a string of lights shooting across the sky. Now we'd been sitting there watching UFO activity all night. There's here recently has been a lot of white dots dancing around the night sky. Could they be drones? Possibly. I don't know. There's no blinking lights to them. They're dancing around the sky, making maneuvers and flying faster than what your normal aircraft do. So it wasn't normal aircraft, and all of a sudden these string of lights shot across, which I've got a picture of that in a video. Weird thing, on my video, I can actually see it when I was recording it, but you go to play it and you can't see it. Now my friend took a still picture of it off of her phone, and you can see it. So, and my first experience of that, when I was 8 years old, and I was visiting my grandma and grandpa down in Forsyth, and it was Christmas Eve, and we was coming back. We was living in Rogersville at the time, in a trailer park up there in Rogersville, and I looked up and I seen a row of blinking lights, and I was like, "Mom, look, it's Santa Claus." She's like, "Well, you better get sleep, or he's never going to come and see you." And about then, I looked up again and seen it turn into a circle, and then that thing started spinning fast and took off. And that was my first UFO experience, but I've seen them all over the world. I was pulling fire guard at boot camp down in San Diego, and me and a buddy of mine, ain't gonna say his name because I don't have permission, was pulling fire watch together. We was literally watching lights dance around, separate, and come together over San Diego. And it's been my experience most of the time when I see that stuff, it's around military bases. I got drug out there to go float, and I wasn't going to go because hell, I ain't got no money, but I got voluntold I'm going. So I gas tank got full, and I went on the float trip. But yeah, I was just sitting out there watching, and we kept looking. It's like, oh man, look at these lights dancing around. So that could be some UFOs. And like, oh no, it's planes. I said, no, they're blinking things over there, there, and there. Those are planes. These are here, and they're like, well, satellites. So, well, they're moving too fast for satellites. And then about then is when them lights shot across the sky, and we're like, oh crap, look at this, wow, we're like, this is cool. And of course, one of the friends told us it was Starlink, and I was like, well, it's real bright to be Starlink, and it's moving way fast to be Starlink. I don't know if it's Starlink. And I've heard reports this last week of law enforcement and other law enforcement entities telling people that it's Starlink when I don't think it is. It was moving way too fast. It was way too bright. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, but I mean, it's a true UFO, and UFO means unidentified flying object. We don't know what it was, and it was flying across the sky. So yeah, it's a UFO. But
Yeah,
I've seen stuff like that, and then I'll say out here. That's why I love living in the country, because I get to see things that city folk and town folk don't get to see. I
that's true.
see the Milky Way all the time. I see more stars than what people can imagine because I don't have the light pollution that the towns and the cities have.
Do you have any orbs or orb activity out there on your property?
I have seen stuff like that, but I can't confirm that's what it is. I mean, I don't know. It could have been hydrated, a lot of stuff. I can't. I have not. I've seen it like 3 or 4 times throughout the world, and about once, maybe twice out here. Most of the orbs I see is what I call UFOs in the sky, and that's that white ball of light that dances around and shoots around and does all these weird moves in the night sky. Far as eye level, I know when I was younger, I was probably about 14, 15. We loved playing hide and go seek out here in the woods. I've actually had one where I slipped and fell to the ground to my back because I thought it was going to hit me in the face. And I've seen one other time, and I was older. I was probably in my 20s. I was just looking out my bedroom window and seen one shoot across. That's been about the most of my experience on orbs. I know orbs are speculated to be spiritual, spirits, which paranormal. I've seen my feel paranormal.
Tell me about some of your paranormal experiences.
The first one I know of, I was roughly 4 years old, and my mom's mom had she'd pretty much helped raise me. I had to be shooken 24 hours a day when I was born because my lungs were together, not separated, so I couldn't breathe right. Um, so, and my grandma, my mom's mom, she helped to keep me alive and treated me as if I was one of her own sons. Well, she had taken her life. She was sick and taken her own life, and I was asleep upstairs. And this is when we lived in St. Joe. And I was asleep upstairs, and right next to mine and my half brother's room was the attic. So you can literally go through a little door in our room, we'll go to the other in our room around the counter or around the corner, boom, there's the attic. I always heard weird noises coming from this attic. Well, me and my adventurous self decided to take a look at it one day, and right there was this lady that was floating. And she goes, "Eric, I love you and I'll protect you." Well, it scared the holy living crap out of me. So, of course, I ran out of there and went running down to mom. Mom's like, "Oh, you're having a nightmare. You've seen a bad movie. Go back to sleep." Well, I wasn't going to go to sleep in my room, and not after that. So I fell asleep at the head of the stairs. And then I got woke up floating in the air, and she's holding me. She goes, "Grandson, I love you, and I'm going to take care of you." So it took a lot of years for mom to realize that I wasn't lying because I described the outfit she was wearing, and that was the outfit she was buried in. So that was my very first experience. Um, I kind of I don't know how to classify paranormal. I classify them in three different things. I classify them as residual, which is energy left over repeating the same thing that they used to do all their life, and they're not intelligent, they're not interactive, they're just a basically a recording that plays over and over and over. That's what I classify those as. Then I classify your intelligent haunt, which is haunts that doesn't necessarily interact. They're intelligent, they can speak, they can do things, they can move things, they can manifest, they cannot. That's what I call an intelligent haunt. And then I call what you got your demonic haunts, which demons are very real. And that's, I classify poltergeist as one of those. I mean, I know poltergeist is a German word for angry ghost, but uh, I classify that because they're, usually when you hear a poltergeist encounter, it's very vicious, very a lot of hate and anger involved with it. So that's what I kind of classify those. And I've had a lot of dealings with a lot of different stuff. Everybody has the gift of discernment. Some people are more in tune to it than others. I'm in tune to it. I have a tendency to see things and feel things that normal people don't. I mean, I admit I've won a few girls' hearts using that, but I can tell them who's following them, what they're doing, and what they're saying most of the time. And that stuff goes on everywhere out here. I've actually been, some people classify this as vampiric, and then some people use the medical term of paralysis, sleep paralysis. I've actually been held down, not being able to move or talk, and I can literally hear something that sounds like fighting in my house. And it felt like the energy was being drained from me at first, and all of a sudden there's bang and stuff going on, and I didn't feel that energy no more. So I always chalk that up to as my grandma was protecting me. Now, vampires is, the oldest story of vampires is Lilith. And if you go to Judaism, that's Adam's first wife, made from the earth, the same as Adam. She was rebellious, was back casted out of the garden, and Adam was put to sleep, and from his rib made Eve. So it just depends on what side of the spectrum you want to believe. I've studied a lot of stuff, so I kind of like that stuff. But that's where the tradition of naming your baby at birth comes from, is Lilith, because Lilith will come in. If you don't name your baby in a certain time, she sucks the soul out of the baby and it dies. That's how she lives. And so she's actually recorded. So the theory of the sleep paralysis, where people say it's vampiric, I kind of see that being true just because of as them being a form. Because sorry about that, uh, because that fits along the lines of that stuff. So whenever that happened to me, I was probably 17, and I stayed in a trailer down here in the bottoms by myself back then, and that's where that happened out. And I always chalked it up to that's my grandma protecting me. And in my younger days, I tried to use my gift to help people. And not knowing what I knowing, I brought more things upon me than I should have because I didn't know no better. So I mean, I've had some evil stuff come about. And I mean, I've seen, like in Hawaii, when I was stationed in the Marine Corps in Hawaii, I was married to my first wife. We used to have a World War II soldier that stayed in our house, and he would come into our room, and I'd look at him, I was like, dude, I'm about to make love with my wife. You need to kind of get out. And he would turn and leave, and then he'd go in and watch my stepson. He would lean over the crib and keep an eye on my stepson. Never was malicious. Never done anything harm. Was always polite. Never would do anything harm. And I mean, he was our ghost that lived with us. He was a World War II veteran that I had respect for. Never done anything wrong to us, but he's visible to us a few times. And then of course you got what is it, the firewalkers? I can't remember what they're called. The King Kamehameha's guards who walk away, walk around Hawaii still protecting his grave. Those you do not stare at. When you see them coming, you get to the ground, you keep an eye on the ground. You do not look on them or they'll kill you. That is spiritual. Can't really say that's demonic, but they're intelligent because, but they could be demonic because they'll kill you. I don't know. I just know that you look upon them, they'll kill you. And there's been several reports of Hawaii of that happening. And Hawaii is probably one of the most haunted places I've ever been. There is so much ghost activity in Hawaii. It's not even funny. I've seen more there than I have anywhere else. And, I mean, I've seen spirits in Australia, Japan, Germany, Ireland, Scotland, Guam, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, um, I mean, over the U.S. I mean, I've seen paranormal all over the place. The one thing in Iraq I never got to experience, I'm kind of glad I didn't, but kind of bummed at the same time, as a jinn, because I thought that would be cool. But jinns, I'd probably classify as demonic too, because they're very vicious. I mean, jinns are some evil things that will mess you up. Jinns ain't something to play with.
Well, it sounds like you have a wealth of information about a lot of the cryptids as well as the spirit world and some of these very unusual paranormal experiences have just kind of been part of your life. Do you think that has
Uh,
anything to do with your relationship with Bigfoot and having that kind of context of knowing them and understanding who and what they are?
no, I don't think it's really a relationship. It's stuff that's out there, and only certain people are attuned to it. Now, everybody can be attuned to it if they want to. They just got to learn to be. It's called the gift of discernment. I don't believe cryptids is a part of that gift of discernment. Gift of discernment is more of the supernatural side, the paranormal side, than anything. Cryptids and UFOs, alien stuff, they just been around for a very, 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 very long time. I don't put that in the supernatural category. I just can't. They're too old. I mean, they're flesh and blood. I mean, that's not supernatural. They're just a. I don't know if you classify. I can't really classify them as an animal, but I can't really classify them as a hominid either. Even though they are technically a combination of both, which is why my theory of Homo erectus, they're one of the true forms of a Homo erectus that's still alive, is because of that.
Why do you think we don't have like a solid, hardcore piece of evidence of Bigfoot?
Oh, I guarantee it is that the government just hides a lot of things. And a lot of people have stuff and they don't want to say nothing because they're afraid of being called crazy. I don't know how many times I've told people about my Bigfoot experiences. And they're, man, you're full of nuts. You're whacked out, giggity. Quit messing with me. No, dude, I'm telling you. And then I start showing them pictures and stuff, and you see that shock on their face. Oh, you done that? So, no, really, I didn't, man. And I really don't think that until people actually see it for themselves. We are conditioned to not believe anything unless the media or the government tells us this is what it is. So until it slaps them in the face, I really don't think they'll believe it. I just believe because I've seen, I'm from Missouri, the show me state. Show me and I'll believe it. And I've seen just too much stuff in my life that, can I say Bigfoot and cryptid is real? Yes. I'm at the 99% percentile because I have not actually had a sighting that I know of. So I'm always going to be at that 99%. There's always going to be that 1% goes, well, maybe it's just coincidence. I've got to be skeptical on this, and I have to be having an open mind. If you don't have an open mind about something and you're closed off saying this is what it is, no matter what you think, this is what it is, nothing ever comes about. You don't have the drive to go, I want to search this, I want to see this, and I want to know this. If you're at that 100% already, you've lost that drive for that. So I've got to keep at least 1% of it going. Maybe it could be something else, because then that pushes you to do that research to find this stuff out.
You have a good working relationship with Bigfoot on your property. Do you think that you would have the capacity at some point for them to let you see them?
Um, I've actually wondered that. I can't 100% say that's for sure. That's kind of where I'm wondering, because of the activity has changed since last year. So I'm wondering if they just not become more accustomed to it. Now, if it wasn't my sweet young daughter who's sitting here listening to everything right now, messing with the RV, very well could have been just a curious juvenile Bigfoot. I mean, I can't rule that out. I can't rule that it wasn't my daughter that finally got a brave hair up her butt and decided to mess with me. I can't do that. I can't say that ain't true. But can I say that it could have been possibly just a curious little juvenile Bigfoot? They're more human-like than what people realize. Hence why I think they steal women and breed with them, is because, once again, it goes back to my theory. We all evolved from Homo erectus, so our DNA could not be that far apart where that happens. Do I know if that's true? I don't know. But I'm thinking they're starting to be more comfortable now that my mom and dad have gone, and it's just me and my kids out here. Dad would have shot one in a heartbeat. That's just how dad is. Mom would probably yelled and screamed and ran. Yeah. Yeah. Me, I'm going to stand there and go, this is cool. I wish you no harm. Don't harm me or my family. We can live in peace. That's just kind of where my mindset is on it. So I think they're, now that, unfortunately mom has passed away and then dad has moved on, I think they're becoming a little bit more friendlier. I would love to have that sighting. Oh man, you don't know how, God, I've traveled all this world. I've been so close to actually having a sighting and never had it. I want that sighting. What I'll do in that sighting, I don't know, because it's never happened. I can speculate and go, hey, I'll be like, hey, dude, what's happening? You want a drink? I don't know. I've never had the sighting. I would love it. And I'm fixing to go down to Indian Point for a week here in about a couple weeks for our national rally. And right across from Indian Point is Joe Bold. Well, dog man is pretty prevalent in Joe Bold. Me and one of my brothers are like, yeah, we're going to Joe Bold. So I might end up having an experience that I don't really want, but I may end up having an experience. I don't know, but we want to check out Joe Bold very, 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 very badly. Hell dog, they've been commonly mistaken as the black shuck, black dog, and their most common name for them is hellhound. Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be awesome. I love this stuff. I really do. It's always fascinated me since I was a kid. I'm not a very I'm dyslexic. I have a hard time reading and a hard time writing. That's why it's so hard for me to write my books, is because I'm dyslexic. I can type everything out I want, but man, I have to revise because I'm not good. So if I get stuck on a word and Grammarly ain't figuring it out, or Microsoft ain't figuring it out, I'm usually hitting that text button, speaking what I want to say. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And so I use a lot of devices to help me write because I'm not good at it. I'm not that savvy. So learning stuff outside of the experiences for me is hard. But the best way I learn is stories. And man, there is so many people out there. If you can gain their trust, you would be amazed on how many people out here has actually had either a cryptid, paranormal, or UFO experience. And it's all about gaining their trust, because so many people, like I said earlier, I think the reason why we don't hear about it so much is they're scared of being criticized. I'm not that way. I may not agree with your theory, but I'm not going to criticize you for it. That's your theory, man. That's what I love about how things used to be in this world. We was able to debate our theories and then turn around and have a drink together. And it wasn't, no, you're a piece of crap. Blah, blah. It wasn't that like it is now. So gaining people's trust nowadays to give you them amazing stories that they have, it's harder. I've always had that luck with people that I can do it. Now I come across as I'm trying to think of an internet polite way of putting this. Well, I'm very blunt and very direct. So people take my demeanor wrong quite often. I'm not trying to be a butt about things. It's just I'm an old Marine grunt NCO, man. And, I've got a demeanor I'm straight to the point and blunt about it. That's just how I am. And people take me wrong all the time. But I've always had to been able to make a connection when I've been able to break through that wall to that barrier and go, hey, man, I believe you. And a lot of times it takes you telling your story first for people to open up. But man, if you can get people to open up about their stories, oh my God, there's some amazing stories out there from your farmer, your campers, your hikers. I mean, just people, even city folk that go out and do that stuff, but live in the city has amazing stories because every now and then they travel out to nature and something weird happens to them, or their house has got something that happens to them. It's amazing. I mean, most of mine, I'll be honest, is the farmers around here, the country folk. I mean, because we're just a little bit more prone to gab than somebody else is.